Hey guys, we're back. Blue versus red. Another episode of BOBA Joe. What's going on tonight? Or tonight? Or this morning, depending on where you are.
How's it going, everybody? So it turns out, apart from the Street Fighter 2 video game, there's actually loads of other Street Fighter related stuff that we can get into. And one particular, I suppose, important piece of that Street Fighter media would be the
This one.
1994 Street Fighter movie, not the animated movie, the movie, live
This
action.
is the important part is that baby oil has many uses other than if you want to have an amateur baby oil wrestling tournament. Has other uses.
Oh yeah. And Kylie Minogue is just looking magnificent here in this picture that you've gotten, wearing the actual video game Kami gear, which
Yeah,
is nice to
from the
see.
actual video
She looks like she'd fit in right in the WWE women's division.
game. That's true. How do you feel about she's an Australian icon for so long, but then kind of got adopted by the UK and moved over there, and it's like Australia likes to steal New Zealand actors and artists like your Crowded House or Split Ends, and then the UK likes to try and steal what they can for Australia where possible. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, I think she's great, to be honest with you. I think she's a real class act, and she's ageless as well. She
Yeah.
still looks absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, she was kind of always a household name when I was growing up,
Mhm. Yeah.
because there was Neighbours was like
Yeah.
regularly broadcast over
I
here. It was like
mean,
a pretty big show over here. And then once her pop career kind of got started because of the proximity to the UK and the whole UK pop chart scene, she was just everywhere. Is um is Danny Minogue as well received in Australia as Sister Kylie?
well, she's fairly popular, and the thing is, I kind of end up seeing the legs on that hair just about every day for the last 10 years because my missus is actually a collector of Kylie Minogue memorabilia albums, like Australian albums, Japanese albums, and she also buys magazines and clippings from all around the world from the last 20 years. And she gets the Kylie calendar every year. So every day I see, every month I see some kind of new, different Kylie image, whether I want to or not. And I'm not complaining, but she has, clippings of Danny Minogue as well. But yeah, no, she's definitely both are well known in Australia and well beloved here, I think, as far as celebrities and people who actually like.
Yeah, she's definitely well regarded, and rightly so. She and any kind of interview or just little bits and pieces you've ever seen of her doing media, she comes across as a nice person, a genuine person.
Hmm.
So more power to her. And of course, the fact that she's like drop dead gorgeous is just a bonus.
That doesn't hurt.
It
Yeah,
doesn't hurt.
it's funny, like looking at the characters they added in the new challenges game after the Turbo and Hyper and all that, and you had DJ, you had T Hawk, Cammy, and forgotten the other one now. um, but it kind of
DJ
makes you wonder who
T-Hawk,
do they.
Cammy, and now my brain is stuck.
Brain
Phelan.
is frozen. Phelan, thank you, Phelan, who's actually my favorite. Based on Bruce Lee, of course. But it kind of makes you wonder who they based Cammy on. If anyone, maybe nobody that has made it up, but like you can go, well, Kylie Minogue is of course Australian, and then she's in the movie, and it's kind of a gag, like because she's in the game, she's English, but then Kylie got adopted by the UK, so she's just as much English as she is Australian, so she very much is Cammy. It's like
Oh
no
yeah.
one else could really
And I
be
think
Cammy in a live action.
from a casting point of view, I imagine as well they were probably thinking it's mainly going to be like an American movie. It's
Mhm.
made for the American audience first and foremost. They won't be able to tell the difference between an Australian and a UK accent. We'll get away with it.
True. That's true. But yeah, so just before we get into the main movie slides, just showing off the main people in this film. We got old Raul Julia as M. Bison, Gomez Adams, of course. For you, the day bison graced your village was the most important day of your life. But for me, it was Tuesday, which has become a big meme after the fact. But I do remember watching the film back there and actually laughing at that line the first time I saw it.
Brilliant. And it's one of those lines where, depending on who is delivering it and what context it's actually said in, it could be a very menacing, badass piece of
Mhm.
dialogue to deliver, but in the middle of this movie that we're about to get into, it just adds more to the overall tone of just having a laugh. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
like the best.
full disclosure, I rewatched this movie this morning, just because I had
Yeah,
time to do so. So it's really fresh in my mind. And but when he spat this line out, like I was in bits. I always it always gets a laugh out of me. I always laugh just here. It's how he delivers it just makes it.
yeah, he totally does. You're right. Like Raul Julie was an excellent actor. He's an Adam's Family Values, and it's kind of a shame this was his last actual film because it wasn't the best film, but he was the best actor easily who was in this. I also love when old on retro blasting Melinda sometimes like references this line, she being a nurse, seeing all kinds of stuff over the years. It's like, yeah, it was Tuesday, so all these horrors and other stuff makes me laugh as well.
Yeah.
So who's this guy? Never seen him before.
Think, is he like Rob Van Dam's cousin?
I think so. He can flips and splits and kicks and everything. Handsome fella.
Handsome fella indeed. And quick aside, I don't think he actually likes Rob Van Dam in real life. They met before apparently, and he wasn't overly thrilled that a wrestler had borrowed his name and likeness.
Yeah, yeah. Have you watched?
But
I mean, he did that like weird movie years ago where he talks to the camera and all that, and some kind of hostage takeover thing. But then on Amazon, they had that JCVD show where he kind of parodies himself in his movies. And have you watched any of that?
I actually haven't, but I would
Oh, it's
definitely
hilarious,
give it a
man! It's
watch
really good. He
because I do
There's bits
enjoy
where
John Claude.
he plays himself in the film, and it's very much the Spinal Tap of Jean Claude Van Damme stuff. It's a comedy, but they play it straight. And there's bits where he meets up with a guy who's a fan who's like, "Oh man, I love Time Cop," and he's like, "Yeah, yeah, that's great. I don't talk about Time Cop so much," but he's playing kind of himself as a secret agent like James Bond. But then he runs into a version of himself that actually is the Time Cop that travels back in time and runs into him. And then he also plays another character of himself where it's like in Tropic Thunder. You know how they have Simple Jack? They have like a Simple Jack character where it's him so obviously dressed up as some kind of weird, like third generation cousin, but it's just him with a stupid wig and weird hair and stuff. It's a hilarious show. And it has I want to say it's is it Felicia? Oh, I forget her name. Felicia Rashad, the lady that played Claire Huxtable on the Cosby Show in the '80s, plays basically like the M character in James Bond, and it's hilarious, man. It's really worth watching. Like the action is good, the comedy's good. It's so like every moment it was just breaking the fourth wall all the time.
Yep, I'll
Here we
definitely
see
put it on the
Kylie as
list.
she actually appears in the film.
Wow, what a stunner! What an absolute
Yeah,
stunner! She looks magnificent in this movie as well.
she's definitely
And
fighting fit.
we're oh, she's fighting fit. She's fighting fit. Getting major Street Fighter kind of if you select the second costume, because if you were
Oh
to pick
yeah, yeah,
Kami,
yeah.
normally her costume's green, but
This is like
if you're
two
player
player
two,
side costume.
you get the blue, gear. That's what this Allied Nations or AN camouflage always makes me think of, is the alternate costumes in Street Fighter when you get a
Yeah,
blue color palette. But she
like the
looks great.
green. We don't get to see her in the green in the movie, but I chucked her up in the like thumbnail image at the start. That was for the production shoot for the video game that tied in with the movie, where like Mortal Kombat, they were doing this still digitized characters, in high resolution into the. Yeah, it was a famously awful game that so much so that Capcom ended up reprogramming and making a new version for the consoles at home. So the arcade and the console version of the tie-in game are quite different. Oh yeah, so a bit of a text wall here, but it's okay. We're going to bust out some combos and punch right through this wall of text, and then we'll be onto some glorious high production images. So Street Fighter 2, the movie, is a live-action movie film adaptation of the popular video game franchise Street Fighter 2, funnily enough, same name. Released in 1994, the movie is loosely based on the video game's characters and storyline. The film revolves around the iconic martial artist Ryu, who is recruited by the government to stop the evil organization Shadaloo and its leader, the megalomaniacal M. Bison. To defeat Bison, Ryu must form an unlikely alliance with other Street Fighter characters, including Chun-Li, Guile, and Dalsy. The film showcases intense martial arts battles and epic showdowns as the heroes confront the forces of Shadaloo. The film was directed by Stephen E. D'Souza, who is known for his work on action and adventure films. D'Souza was also responsible for writing the screenplay, so love him or hate him for that reason, I guess. JCVD, as I call him now, as Colonel Guile, Ming-Na Wen plays Chun-Li. Raul Julia delivers a memorable performance as M. Bison. Raul Julia's role as Bison was one of his final film appearances before his untimely death in 1994. The movie is loosely based on the Street Fighter 2 game series by Capcom, which was highly popular in the 90s and it remained popular throughout the 2000s, but it was a bit of low in the fighting games before they bounced back on new generation machines and digital media. While it retained many of the game's characters and their distinctive fighting styles, the film deviated significantly from the game's storyline to create a more traditional action movie plot. And I'll hand over to Mark for the second half here, which kicks off with the film was praised.
So the film was praised for its production design, capturing the distinct look and feel of the Street Fighter universe. The filmmakers recreated iconic stages and settings from the game, including a battle in a hidden waterfall fortress and a showdown on Bison's secret island. So the film featured intense martial arts choreography, showcasing the unique fighting styles of the Street Fighter characters. The action sequences were a highlight for fans of the game as they tried to emulate the moves and attacks seen in the video game. So Street Fighter the movie was released in theaters in 1994 and received mixed reviews from critics. While some praised the action and faithful character representations, others criticized the plot and the deviations from the game's storyline. So, despite its mixed reception, the film has gained a cult following over the years, particularly among fans of the Street Fighter franchise. It is remembered for its campy and over the top portrayal of the characters, with Raul Julia's performance as M. Bison often cited as a standout. So, the movie was accompanied by a video game adaptation called Street Fighter the Movie, which incorporated digitized versions of the film's actors into the gameplay. And as Johnny mentioned there briefly, it's a terrible game. Even in its reprogrammed form, it's really bad.
Yeah, and the weird thing was I forget the name of the company that actually made it, but they made that game and Capcom were really unhappy. So when it came to the console version, Capcom reprogrammed did their own version using the assets or whatever. But then later used that company down the track to actually make like another game for them years later. So it's weird business practice.
I'm actually kind of surprised that even got, mixed reviews. Mixed reviews, though, sometimes
That's
can
being
be
very
like
kind.
code for.
That's very generous.
Yeah, 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 it is a bit
Most of them were
generous
like,
because,
this is garbage.
yeah. And as a kid, I was maybe among them at the start. It's weird. It was one of those movies where you watch it a lot, even though it wouldn't have been one of my favorites. And I was kind of annoyed. We'll get to it as we move through the plot of the movie. But there were a couple of things that as a kid who was used to how the characters were portrayed in the actual game, there was, let's just say, one or two key differences in this live action movie that really kind of stood out to me, and not in a positive way.
For sure. Yeah, there was all sorts of weird differences where it's very much of its era as far as I won't say just video game movies, but just adaptations of whatever Where it's very Hollywood. It's like, we're just going to change this and this and this for no particular reason. So it's just so many elements of it are just nonsensical. Like they just put it in a blender of, let's remix all these elements and see what it spits out. Hope for the best.
It is though, and I know we kind of mentioned this when we did our Mortal Kombat movie. But one thing that does always strike me, and I will agree with what it said in the synopsis I just read. Um, it is quite visually impressive in terms of the locations where they actually
Yeah, locations are
shoot
nice.
the film in. It's and you could tell they definitely put a bit of money into building large sets and also blowing up large sets as well, because there is quite a few kind of set piece explosions and just kind of big action sequences. So like what I can I can be quite critical of movie plot and acting and stuff like that. But one thing I always will appreciate, even if the movie itself is flawed for whatever reason, if I can see that there's been kind of money and effort put into actually making it look good, sometimes that can just be enough for me to to get it over the line.
Yeah, and I'll just briefly mention what's going on here before we jump on to the next slide. So it kicks off. We get a big Street Fighter logo thrown up at us with those little wings and the globe. There's a lot of news and media and TV screens going on in this movie. A lot of screens in the background and news bites, sound bites, all that sort of stuff. We get the crisis in Shadaloo, which, like, I don't know how we're supposed to know what the hell that even means. It's it's kind of presumed it's like a third world country or war or whatever. We get some stock footage, which I don't know where it's from, but I want to say it's Gulf War era stock footage by the look of it. We get to see Bison and his weird floating platform and his big base hanging out with all his minions who are very much like G.I. Joe Cobra type minions in red, or like red shadows, I guess, or stormtroopers. And we get some credits, and we'll move on to the next bit. The slide's in there twice for no particular reason because I managed to muck that up. So we're on to the next one. We get Chun-Li, who is a reporter, and then we get Guile, who's doing that JCVD face where he just looks so smug and self-satisfied with himself. I just love that image there. He just looks like a prick. Even though I enjoy him in his
Oh yeah,
films. It just
he
looks
is
like a
quite
complete prick in it.
he is quite prickish in this film as well.
Yeah,
He's got a lot of kind of snarky
he's
remarks
very
and just
smug.
yeah, he's got a face on him like that you just love to slap him sometimes. He just yeah, he's very
It's like
smug.
they're paying me to be in this film, and I guess I turned up and I got some free coffee and I did the splits and then I went home. But yeah, you get a satellite. We get DJ from New Challengers, and I couldn't remember his name before. And he's for no particular reason, he's on the side of the bad guys, even though he's in the Street Fighter fiction, he's a good guy. We get the weird red shadows looking goons and their masks, so I find quite fun as far as being just generic goons. We get Zangief, who just looks nothing like the video game Zangief. They just got some guy that said, like, cut your hair in a mohawk, grow a beard, and we'll put some maroon red on you and you'll be Zangief. And he just stands around the background and scenes doing not much at all. No acting really, just stands around looking like a cardboard cutout Zangief, man.
Yeah, he was told just to act like a Russian and yeah, look
Yeah,
menacing.
don't say anything. Be menacing. But yeah, we see
Chung Li,
Kylie Minogue in
I
Vegas.
was just going to say, is it Ming Na Wen? Is that how you pronounce
Mhm.
the actress's name
As
that
far as I
plays
know.
Chung Li? Yeah, she's very well cast in this movie, I think,
Yeah, she's a
especially
decent actress.
and later on when you actually kind of see her in her kind of martial arts gear, for want of a better term, she does kind of suit the overall look. Like I could believe that this
Yeah, she
person
goes from
was
being reporter
Chung
lady
Li.
to actually in the full Chun-Li costume later on.
Yeah, yeah. It's no, she does a good job. Definitely the both the leading ladies in this movie pull their weight as far as their
Mhm.
characters are concerned.
But we get Ken and Ryu, who were quite strange. Like the guy who plays Ryu has been in a whole bunch of TV shows and stuff over the years. Like he's been, you know, a real jobber sort of actor. Not a knock against him. You know, he's had a long career, done all sorts. And the guy is Ken. He's got dark hair that's not long. It's not blonde. And until someone says his name, there's no way you'd know this was Ken from Street Fighter because he's just some guy, just some mook standing around. And they go in and infiltrate this underground scene. There's like a fight club or UFC type of cage match going on with Vega and some other guy. Ken and Ryu go into this club, which Sagat seems to be running or organizing as a crime boss. We see a whole pile of illegal weapons and you know, like your AK-47 sort of thing. And for no particular reason, the bad guys pick up the guns and start firing at Ken and Ryu, but they fire out like tennis balls or ping pong balls, like Nerf guns, and it's quite a bizarre scene.
It's a very bizarre scene. So I guess what they're establishing here is this Ken and Ryu, they're a couple of chancers or would be
Yeah,
con men,
undercover.
and they're going to try and pawn off these kind of toy weapons and sell them to Sagat. I always think one line of dialogue that I always find hilarious is during that moment where Sagat actually orders his men to aim the weapons at Ryu and Ken. Like Ryu and Ken obviously look a bit like worried, and Sagat says, "What's the matter, gentlemen? Surely you're not afraid of your own weapons." Which is a
Ah.
very odd piece. Like, why wouldn't I be afraid of my own weapon? Like, if it's supposed to be a gun and you're pointing it at me, it's such an odd piece of dialogue. Even within the context of obviously he knows they're going to fire out tennis balls or
Mhm.
whatnot, but it's yeah, a very interesting scene and a very kind of odd take on the characters of Ken and Ryu, and it's probably the first real instance of, as a fan of the games, kind of going like, what the fuck are they doing here? And like you said,
Yeah,
like Ken just looks like an overworked yuppie. Like he doesn't, you would
just some
never
schlub.
know. Just some schlub, just some schlub. Even if they'd at least had him dye his hair blonde or something. Like even
Hey,
Guile, I know Guile doesn't have the big Guile doesn't have his big brush head like he does in the game, but at least he spikes his hair up and it's a bit blonde, so you could kind
well,
of guess it was Guile.
he's wearing some kind of military camo, or he's got a uniform. He's not just a guy walking around in plain clothes that you don't know anything about.
Yeah. Like Ken's wearing a tie, for God's sake. Like, have you ever
Yeah,
associated the
it's
character of
strange.
Ken wearing a tie? It's so weird.
No,
It's so weird.
like, but it's like they're undercover and like it's. I lose track of the story because whether you're watching the animated show or this movie, they kind of follow similar stories where Guile and Chun Li are the main characters, and everyone else kind of follows their lead. So it's like Ryu and Ken are just a couple of goons doing what Guile's asked them to do.
Yeah, it's a far stretch from the kind of that game slash animated movie where
Yeah,
Ken and Ryu are the focus. They
yeah,
definitely
they're
push more
always the
for
focus in the
Guile and
games.
Chung Li. But I suppose, like you mentioned earlier, it's a real kind of Hollywood production, and I'm sure decisions like this probably just come down to a room full of guys in suits looking at charts, looking at surveys and saying, well, our survey shows that, Guile is like 3% actually more popular than Ken. Therefore, he should be the lead character. It's silly things like that kind
Yeah.
of drive these decisions.
Can we get more scenes of guys with suits and boardroom meetings and clipboards in the movie? Yes, 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 we can. I do like the
Yeah,
DNA mutagens in this scene. But why would you dig mutagen, and what are they going to do to this poor fella in that strange biohazard chamber up there?
yeah. And now, strangely enough, even though I guess it would turn out to be a bit of a disappointment, which we'll get to. But as a youngster, I did actually get a bit excited um, during this moment because you always did wonder, even playing the video game, what is Blanca? Like it was very hard to define
Mhm.
what he actually was. So I suppose at least in this movie they make an effort to try and say, well, he's essentially a Ninja Turtle style mutant. We're literally using the
He's
word
Ninja Turtles
mutagen.
mixed with the Hulk.
But I think I'll take a quick moment to mention as well, just before we move on. The guy who's cast as Vega is also pretty well cast. He looks the part.
Mm-hmm.
He looks good in the mask, and I think he gets across the whole that kind of vapid, self-obsessed kind of vibe that Vega gives off, where he's more
Yeah.
concerned about his look than he actually is probably about fighting. So kudos to that guy. He manages to kind of to pull it off.
Yeah, the actor's good, and he's got a good natural-looking physique. He's in shape for the role, but the mask, you can tell they bought that for $2 and just put some spray paint on it at the last minute.
Roamed it up.
But yeah, we got some good exterior shots here again, and I'm not sure where. I want to say it's like Thailand or somewhere in that region, with the water and the buildings and boats, and then we're in this like weird guile, I don't know, UN Special Forces meeting, and some guy, possibly the cook from the Kung Fu Kitchen, jumps up on the table with a knife or whatever, and from nowhere just comes charging at Guile, who does a big sweep kick. And then it was hard to get an image of this because it was all blurry no matter where I stopped it. But he does what you would call an opened knife or ridge hand chop straight into his neck, and like this, and like and it like knocks him down. And by the time he's done that, everyone starts to pull their guns out. Like, guy's done a sweep kick and a ridge head chop to this guy's neck, 70s Kung Fu style, before anyone in the room could pull their gun out. Because they all pull their guns out like 3 seconds too late before this guy's tried to stab Guy unsuccessfully during the meeting, where he's kind of trying to give him the brief. And he's just like, blah, 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 kick. And he just goes back to doing the meeting. So,
It's just business as usual for Guile.
yeah.
He's well used to getting all these assassination attempts. It is hilarious though. And sometimes I don't
It's the
know if
most
I
Kung Fu
really.
moment in the film.
Oh, big time, big time. Do you think, I don't even know if it's a good time to raise it or
Mm,
not, but maybe at this point of the movie, I suppose we're kind of getting
yeah.
a look at what the movie's like tonally. Do you think a lot of this stuff was intentionally done to make the audience laugh? Because it does feel like, especially now when I watch it as an adult, the film does not take itself as seriously, say, as the Mortal Kombat
Yeah.
movie.
I feel
It
like the
seems to
scene
be
where he
always
sweeps the
like,
guy and ridge hand chops, I feel like that's got comedic effect because it's
oh, big time.
they do it like a blind side shot where you see the shot of the guys in this meeting. We're looking from Guy's point of view. This guy just like fully hops up out of nowhere from out of frame onto the desk and sprints all the way down the desk before he sweeps it. So I feel like it is for comedic effect because it's just to interrupt his meeting and then he goes back to it. So I do feel like that
And
scene works for like
it won't be
a
the last
joke.
time. We'll get a few of these. Violence in this movie is something to behold in itself, because, like you were saying, there was that, like, even just the whole kind of physics of what happens in that scene with the sweep and then the kind of neck chop. It's like, it's just hilarious how kind of fighting works in this movie, and we'll see in a few other scenes later on. Like, people are they're either getting kind of knocked out by things that wouldn't really hurt a fly, or they're withstanding damage from stuff that should kill them.
Yeah,
It's just a really
true.
interesting take on combat.
But yeah, old Cammy Chun Li, she's like slightly annoyed. She pulls her gun out too. And then as we go on to the next scene, Ken and Ryu are now undercover in a prison, pretty much unrecognizable, but again, as being Ken and Ryu, if you don't know who the hell they are. And also in this prison is Vega and Sagat. So they're trying to get some kind of intel about Bison's organization from the underlings and whatever's going on. And going to the next bit here, we've got the scientist who is Dal Zim only by name. He doesn't really do any fighting in this movie. It's just a name drop. And he's turning this guy into this chamber. Eventually becomes Blanca. In the original video game, Blanca was just called Jimmy, and he was from Brazil, from the south, and we didn't know what the hell he was. But then later on, he was kind of Nash, Charlie, Kyle's friend, and other weird stuff and retcon things. I like the original version where he's just this unknowable monster guy who I don't really know about. The movie goes to
Yeah.
weird places.
He's yeah, I prefer maybe him just being a feral fiend from the jungles of
Yeah,
Brazil rather than,
you
an
don't need to
actual
explain them.
explainable backstory. Exactly, exactly. You nailed it. But
We get some more of
it's
these
just
UN peacekeeping guys. Chun-Li, E Honda is for some reason he's like the cameraman and she's the reporter, but I always get lost in the story. Is she really a reporter or is she just undercover as a reporter?
okay. So according to the story, she deliberately studied and became a journalist for like 10 years with the sole purpose of gathering information on bison. Apparently, so she is
Ah,
really a reporter, but she's only doing it to fuel her quest of vengeance against bison. If you can make
that's some
sense of
long
that,
game.
yeah, that she's playing the long game. She's playing the long game.
But
Yeah,
one
see,
of the things that makes me laugh, the E Honda guy. No disrespect to the actual person or the actor, but okay, he's E Honda, right? He's wearing a fucking Hawaiian shirt. He's clearly Hawaiian, just like the old WWF wrestlers who were playing Japanese guys of the '90s Yokozuna style. That makes me laugh.
yeah, it's hilarious. It's just hilarious though as well that they obviously they had a list of characters from the game. They just really needed to shoehorn in because the
Yeah,
cameraman and the sound guy, they could be anybody really. They don't have to be E Honda and Balrog. They could literally
Balrog.
be whoever you wanted them to be.
Balrog is a bad
But
guy.
yeah,
One of the underlings of the game is just a random dude in this movie.
yeah, they should have swapped out DJ for Balrog. Balrog should be doing what
That would
DJ
make
is
a
doing,
lot
and
more
DJ
sense. Like, you have to wonder if somebody making this movie confused those characters or something. Because, like, what? It makes no
maybe
sense. One
maybe.
the good guy's bad and the bad guy's good. But yeah, we get some more
I
nice
think that
exterior shots here too with the elephants and the water. The boats going along reminds me of old like Vietnam '70s era films. We get bison there, and what did he call it? Yeah, Poopopolis, whatever the hell he called it in there. This little diorama. Bit of a megalomaniac. We see Balrog, Honda, and Chun-Li in their little news van, April O'Neil style, like the turtles. I love this little one down the bottom here. There's this random insert that says Shadowloo on $25 a day, like it's some kind of holiday guide to this dictator's paradise. And then the last slide, we see it's Jean Claude again. He can do the splits, and he's wearing a blood pack, as people do in movies for squibs and such. But they show he's wearing this like he's as if they're telling you he's gonna like fake his death or something later in the movie for some particular purpose.
Yes, it's like a lot of things in this movie, it's quite a convoluted plan. I believe he wants Bison to believe that he's been assassinated, so he can, in fact, get the
That or he's been eating
surprise.
Italian food.
Yes, yeah. So he definitely goes through a lot of trouble to fake his own death en route to when he eventually goes to deal with Bison. Look at this currency here, these Bison dollars.
I like them bison bucks, man. I'd have some of those.
Oh yeah, 1 billion
And some not.
Bison dollars.
Yeah, and there is a kind of running gag in the background about Bisono populace, and he's gonna make his own nation with his own money and other nonsense, and it is kind of a gag in the background. I do love the practical explosions here, which are good fun, and for no particular reason, we get a like missile submersible thing that's for sale, relatively cheap, I would think, from that cardboard sign on it.
Yeah, it's just I think there's some pretty funny exchanges between Bison and Sagat here as well, where Sagat is actually just arranged to provide Bison with loads of guns and weapons, and
Yeah,
Bison's like, I'll pay you by making you like co-ruler of the country, and Sagat's like, I just want the money. It's just real, we're criminals and we're talking tough. It's just another one of those like hilarious aspects of the movie where it's just like, what are these guys like? Even just seeing Sagat wearing a suit, it's just so bizarre. It's just like you just
Yeah,
can't picture
it is.
this guy wearing a suit.
He seems so ordinary because he's a smaller guy. He's not tall like the Sagat video game character, which I mean, most real life type people aren't crazy tall anyway to start with. So you could argue it's more realistic, but he doesn't come across as muscly or a fighter or anything. He's just a guy with an eye patch who's bald in a suit. And Bison seems a bit out of touch because Sagat already seems to be some kind of mafia crime lord guy who's probably already ruling half the country anyway. So what did you get out of his dealings with Bison? This can't be much.
I'll just be one of the many unanswered questions in this
Hmm.
movie because I'm sure some of you, if anybody watching or listening now thinks we're kind of flying through this or moving along, I have to kind of emphasize, folks, the movie itself actually moves at a breakneck pace. Like
Yeah,
nothing
it just
has
jumps
time
along like
to
Mortal
sink in.
Kombat. It's like here's this guy, here's this guy, here's this thing.
Yeah,
I
next
do
fight,
like
next action scene.
I do like here that the guy playing Ken, the wardrobe has decided to kind of floof up his hair and make him a bit more presentable. He's in a suit there in the bottom frame. We get to see him in the red gi, but he's still not recognizable as Ken. He actually makes me think of Johnny Cage in Mortal Kombat with that hair.
Yeah, he's got definite Johnny Cage vibes. I
Yeah.
have to say, and like no offense to the actual actor or whatever, he was just miscast because
Oh,
even
for
later
sure.
on when you see him actually do a bit of fighting in a fighting scene, like unlike everybody else, he doesn't look like he's like a martial artist or anything
No.
near a trained fighter. He just seems like a fish out of water. And I think they were kind of conscious of that as well because I think in another scene he like throws a punch and he actually looks surprised that he was able to knock the guy down, which doesn't say a lot about his belief in his fighting ability.
uh,
Definitely not
that's
the
true.
Ken Masters we know and love from the video game.
No, he's not doing no flaming dragon punches in this one. So we get some more good exteriors here. We've got a good old night boat zipping through the water. We've got some other guys from the UN Special Forces in the blue with the guns. Chun Li gets captured by Bison, and it's a little bit. On the one hand, it's nice to see it in the traditional Chinese outfit we see it, like, for their hero character relating to the game. But in the movie, it's super creepy. It's like he's captured her, and it's like, by the way, go and put on this outfit for my pleasure. So it's a fairly creepy scene. Um,
Yeah,
Visually, it's nice, but thematically, it's just weird and creepy. But
yeah,
we
she
get some
does look
decent action here.
she looks wonderful in her full
Yeah,
gear when he does get her to change. But you're right, it is a bit of a kind of somewhat unnerving scene if you were to read into it because yeah,
he's
he
like
has
some
her in her little
otaku. He's
slave
like, put this
costume.
costume on. I thought of.
She's also handcuffed during this scene as well, so that adds
Yeah,
another element of kind of plus he like goes and he gets changed behind a screen and he comes out wearing his robe and stuff. Like he clearly has plans
it is
to
a traditional screen, a proper dividing screen. It's not a movie one; it's a real
yeah,
one.
yeah, he's definitely got he's feeling frisky as Bison. He's got something on his mind he's
Yeah.
plans on doing.
My favorite image easily on this one's is the old ignore the old Charlie Blanker down there getting, I don't know, he's putting his powder makeup on Phantom of the Opera style. But the next one over, the old MacGyver 59, 58 countdown. I love a good countdown clock, or Kiefer Sutherland at 24. You can't beat a good countdown clock, man.
Love it, love it. GoldenEye as well has a great big countdown clock with
GoldenEye.
the big.
Yep.
I just loved how those red digital numbers.
Yeah,
Makes you
I
feel
do.
under pressure.
It burned into my retinas.
I wonder was the stealth boat in this movie the inspiration for the boat in Hulk Hogan's Thunder in Paradise. I'm getting major
I
Thunder in
do
Paradise
wonder
vibes
because the
now.
Thunder of Paradise became Night Boat in The Simpsons, which is why I mentioned Night Boat.
Yeah, it's definitely got that
You've got to
theme.
go to
It's got that
hyperspeed,
tone.
brother.
It's one of those things. It might look a little bit janky though when you watch it back
Yeah.
with modern eyes, but the boat itself when you see it on screen, it's actually quite impressive. And once again, you could tell they spent a bit of money modifying a speedboat to look like a kind of sleek,
Yeah.
you know, technologically advanced stealth vehicle. So fair play to them there. One thing that though, once again, it always makes me chuckle when you see Guile actually getting into the boat and he like closes the hatch on like big stenciled letters across the side of the boat. It actually just says Colonel William Guile, like it's
It
actually his
does.
own
It does. It
stealth
was
boat.
like where it says that. I was looking at that earlier today in the film, and it had like the name on the side. I had a chuckle at that. I have to assume that some of those kit and caboodle on those night boats would be like fiberglass or whatnot, because my old man worked with fiberglass for about 20 years doing kits and wings for cars, bits on race cars and other stuff. And it's lightweight, it can move quickly, and if it breaks, you can kind of repair it again. So I would think that some of that kit would be fiberglass as well as other bits of metal and whatnot on there.
Would you say, Johnny, from looking at these screen shots
Mm-hmm.
and then talking about you wearing your blue hat and me wearing my red bandana, and in this
I'll
movie,
fight you, man.
all yeah, well, all the Allied nation forces in this movie wear blue, and all of Bison's forces wear red. So maybe we are at odds
Well,
here.
I'll tell you, I'm on the side of Australia and Kylie Minogue and Cammy's ass, of course. And you're Red Shadows, so we're going to be enemies from
Yeah,
this day forward. And just watch out in upcoming episodes because it might be a death match. I don't know, but yeah,
doing
no,
dodgy
for sure.
dealings.
Very, very, very Cobra 80s cartoon, which was blue, of course, but or if you're old Palatoy, Red Shadows style, or Stormtroopers in Star Wars reminds me of all of those things.
I wonder, did they call the good guys the Allied nations because they were not allowed to refer to them as the United Nations? Do you think there might have been an
You
issue there
definitely
with?
would not be allowed to use United Nations without permission in a movie. I'd say that's very intentional. But whenever you watch it, and it's kind of like we might be in Europe or we might be in Asia, and there's these blue flags, and it's clearly trying to be like United Nations and peacekeeping troops rather than active combat troops or whatever. Which not to downplay peacekeeping troops, they have all the same skills of any other kind of troops do, but they have a different specific purpose.
Still, though, very impressive, even just going through these screen grabs here. And as I mentioned earlier, location shooting in this movie is very impressive. Like, and yeah, I think you're right. I think there was a lot that was shot in Thailand and Singapore, I think,
Yeah.
for some of the city stuff. But
That's
you've got
that's
like,
where Shang Tsung killed Liu Kang's brother right there, I bet you.
oh yeah, oh yeah. It's just that no, it's really impressive. And like I said earlier, I can always appreciate if there has been money and effort put into the overall look of a movie, and if that means going to
Mhm.
actual real life locations and building sets there, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. It'll always be something that, especially as I get older and a little bit more crankier when it comes to movies, I do get a bit fed up with just seeing CGI landscapes or digitized kind of buildings and people and stuff. I just like seeing real stuff on screen. And yeah, I know it's a
I do too.
set. It's not really like it's not really the Allied Nations headquarters, but still, it was a set. They built it. The walls are real. The people are real, and it makes a difference.
I'll take sets, exteriors, miniatures, and actors on location any day over from fucking CG of America's ass or whatever else they're doing in Hulk. And I like all that shit too, but it's too much of it. It's not good for your mental health. You got to see some actual texture in a film or something that you can, make sense of.
Like the old those kind of swords and sandal epics of the 60s and 70s, like stuff like Ben
Oh,
Hur, where they used literally like, thousands
Spartacus.
of extras. There was no CGI back then. You paid extras money to show up, and you paid thousands of them to show up and make an army. So then when you see
You
that
got
on
your
screen,
stage
it's
hands
so
and nail
visually
on those
impressive.
spiky Mad Max wheels one by one. He didn't have no computer
Oh yeah,
graphics.
oh yeah. you had like whole industries built around making movies back in the day, whereas now everything's or a lot of it is just digitized. Thanks for
It's
coming to
funny.
my TED Talk rant on modern special effects.
Well, I love computer graphics of video games, and video game cutscenes are fine because they're not films. But when it comes to practical films, I'd rather see actual actors and actual sets and backgrounds. And give me a Batman 1989, or give me The Shadow, or Dick Tracy with actual production value, or Aliens, and as that sort of thing's died out for so many reasons, for money reasons, and I don't know, tradition and whatever things have changed over the years to different emphasis, but there's certain I'd rather watch films pre 2000 than post 2000 as far as visually speaking, whereas films I like that aren't so reliant on special effects, like a Drive with Ryan Gosling, whatever, where it's about the story and the characters. Writing is going to rule all day, but if you're going to do effects and all that shit, give me practical shit and models, and give me Sean Connery and Outland and the first Star Wars, where it was just called fucking Star Wars without any stupid numbers or any stuff behind it.
Put Outland down on the list for a chat one of these days, will you? Because I fucking love that movie.
Space Western.
Space Western. My men are shit.
He's got the quickening, but he's also got a shotgun, so don't mess with him.
Yeah. Oh, I love Outland. I love Outland.
Yeah, it's great fucking
But
film,
not
man.
the.
That's kind of one of the end of that era of the practical miniatures and the space stations and all the aliens kind of shit. It's right towards the end of when they're doing that stuff.
And it's definitely worthy of a BOBA Joe discussion, I think, in its
Sure.
entirety. It's quite the movie, quite the movie.
Yeah,
but yeah, going back to we're going to get distracted here by talking about genuinely good films.
I might get pimp slapped by old Sean Connery if we talk about that one. I have to be careful.
Carlos Blanca, looking mean and unkept.
Yeah, he's got his Phantom of the Opera $2 makeup effects on and a wig he's found at a drainage ditch or whatever.
So like Guile and the team have moved in. They're surrounding Bison's headquarters, which is in from the outside looks like a gutted out temple, but on the inside is this like technological.
I assume it's the Thunderbirds headquarters.
Yeah, it's really it's got that whole secret Bond villain vibe of looks relatively normal on the outside, but inside is full of technological terrors.
Moving platforms and things that float around for no reason at all.
It's pretty hilarious as
the
well.
Old Red Cross workers, poor buggers there trying to do humanitarian aid, and he's just shoved them in a hole.
It's funny when it's such a typical Jean-Claude type of thing, but when Guile actually shows up for these kind of finale moments where he's storming the base, like all of Bison's men are armed with machine guns. There's loads of them.
Yeah.
Jean-Claude jumps in. He's got one pistol, and he manages to take out, like, even though he's, at the bottom of a corridor, all guns are aimed at him. Nobody can hit him, and he's just taking his time, RoboCop style, picking these guys off one by one. It's just,
yeah.
It's brilliant. I just love that. It's so unrealistic that this like one guy with a pistol who's not even like ducking for cover is able to take out this whole like squad of guys armed with assault rifles.
Yeah, everybody just like line up and wait for me to shoot you one by one. Nobody shoot at me more than one at a time.
Yeah. We have to make it fair, guys.
They got to make it fair for JCVD. It's like that 80s action movie trope of the unbeatable Superman hero who just dodges bullets and beats them up with punches and kicks and one gun and Die Hard style. He does do a flash kick in this scene where he fights Bison too, where it's very brief, like a frame or two, where the little flashy effect, it actually does the flash kick. He kind of bounces off a wall, Jackie Chan style, and does a move from the game. And it's one of the few video game moves are actually in the movie.
Yeah, and it actually happens in a kind of a natural moment as well, unlike some of the other kind of martial arts you see in these kind of closing moments that are just they just look totally out of place because you've
Yeah,
essentially got two armies facing off. So you've got one army defending the base, which is Bison's army. Then you've got this UN/AN army, Guile's forces coming in. Both sides have guns, yet there's numerous instances of people just putting down their guns and doing like hand-to-hand combat, and you're just like, no fucking way would
yep.
this ever happen. You would never take the risk of like going hand to hand, like fighting
No
through like
way.
guys, like
Crazy.
yeah, just not a chance. Then again, if I was Jean-Claude Van Damme, maybe I'd be feeling a little bit more confident in my abilities. But needless to
Ask
say,
ask
he
ask
oh
old
no, I was
Tony
just
on
going to say
Analog
he
Toys.
does.
Did he ever put out in special forces? Did he put a weapon down to say I want to punch and kick it? No, never.
No, no.
Stupid.
Did you put your
Just want
weapon
to
down so
die.
you could do a backflip?
Yeah,
But it's one of those things like I was saying earlier, like violence, how violence is presented in the movie and how combat is presented. It's almost a topic in itself because it's just that kind of weird. Sometimes like what you're watching is really comedic and ridiculous looking, and then in the next moment you could be watching somebody getting their neck broken in a really violent kind of manner. Like so,
yeah.
it's
It
just
does very
it's
much. The style of the film feels a lot to me like the Hasbro Sunbow G.I. Joe cartoon. It almost feels more like a G.I. Joe live action movie than a Street Fighter movie.
yeah, and it's funny you should say that because maybe that Hasbro GI Joe line. Now I don't even know. I think it was '93, so it could have been before this. But one definitely inspired the other. It feels like maybe this movie was more
Yeah,
inspired by the GI Joe aspects of that because it would definitely fit the tone of what you see kind of presented in front of you. There's a very kind of GI Joe slash Mega Force type of
yeah,
you know
yeah.
bunch of army guys going to bust the terrorists. Let's do this.
And I don't know what was going on behind the scenes because I've watched this movie back. I mean, when it was out, and a few times since then. And this week, leading into our other talk we're going to be doing, is we're going to be doing another talk about Street Fighter 2, the animated series in the 90s and the old USA Network, and the G.I. Joe Street Fighter toys and the Street Fighter 2 anime movie. We're going to have another chat about that. And but the whole style and thing of that thing, in that Street Fighter 2 animated like Saturday morning cartoon, a lot of the story follows stuff that's in the movie. So I don't know if they wrote the same treatment that got used or source material for both the animation and the movie because they're out around similar time, or if one influenced the other. But there's the whole thing about like Blanca being a guy that's transformed, and Guile and Chun Li like the lead characters in the animation, just like this movie. There's a lot of things, and Ryu and Ken in the animated show are just complete idiots who just bumble around and do virtually nothing in the background and do whatever Guile asks them to do. So the animation feels very much in tone with this movie, and that GI Joe kind of like kind of goofy way, like cartoon way.
Yeah, I'd agree. Because the animated series, it definitely looks the part. Like it looks like,
Actually,
the
looks quite
way
nice.
you'd envision. It looks quite nice, but tonally, it's a bit off. And as we'll get
Yeah, the
into
voice
when
acting
we,
and the stories are just all over the place, but it's kind of comedy gold. Some of the stuff in it, which we're going to talk about with Epic Badger later on, and the Badger's the expert on the toys. You and me probably know the anime film better, but in the middle we're going to meet on that animated TV show, man, and we're going to rip it a new one.
yeah, that's what we're all about. We're about coming together to rip on stuff from the past, But
Yeah, that's it.
no, I'm looking forward to it.
Uh,
I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
getting the chat with Badger because even though I might not have an overly high opinion of the animated series. I do have a very, very high opinion of the animated movie. I believe I mentioned to you last week. It's
Oh, the
like my
movie was
my
cool.
second favorite. second favorite animated movie of all time after Transformers. So it's a big place in my heart, the Street Fighter 2 animated movie. So I'm looking forward to talking about it with you guys later.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. So I do like end of the movie here. We get for no particular reason, we get all the Street Fighters just all lined up together. Zangief is gone, stuff you, Bison. I'm just going to hang out with these guys and strike a pose here, and maybe I'm a good guy now after all. We get Honda and Balrog. They're looking more like the characters from the game, even though they're just one's a reporter and cameraman or something instead of fighters. So it's very weird. And then Raul Julia, of course, has pass. So it's in the credits. It says for Raul, vaya con Dios, which means go with God. So it's kind of nice they put, and that was actually the lead credit they put in the film. So cheesy film, bit silly, but it's nice that they actually treated their I mean, Jean Claude's the lead, but come on, Raul Julia he's a fucking creme de la creme. He's a real actor in this film, so it's nice that he actually gets this little nod at the end there for being a kick-ass actor, or Gomez Adams and many other films and other stuff. But I like that actually put that in there. It's a bit of class.
Yeah, he was a great character actor, and it showed in this movie because he took something that a lot of actors would probably read the script and especially the dialogue around Bison, and they either would just refuse to do it, or if they did it, they would very begrudgingly probably just barely act their way through it. Like for
Well,
Ryul,
you could
he
go
literally
Nicolas
just
Cage style.
well, like Ryul grabbed that role by the gonads and just said, "Fuck it, I'm going to
Yeah,
go all out." And he's really entertaining, and he's just really
he is.
funny,
He's
and
excellent.
you can't take your eyes off him anytime he's on screen. So yeah, look, I know it is a bit of you could look at it from the point of view that maybe it's a bit of a dud movie to go out on, but like you said, they showed him a bit of class, and hopefully because of the fact that the movie kind of probably did pretty good commercially, hopefully his family and everything benefited
Yeah,
from the revenue and the profits. So in that
I
respect,
hope.
I can't really complain.
Well, that's about all I've got to say about this movie. That was a bit of a dud, but in retrospect, bit of entertaining fun to look back at, and I don't mind it. Watch on a Sunday afternoon.
Very entertaining. And folks, like I mentioned earlier, if you're kind of watching or listening to this and kind of thinking, I'm still not 100% sure on some of the plot points that were discussed and how things happen and this and that.
We're not sure
Don't
20
worry.
years later.
We're not really sure either. And this is coming from somebody who literally watched the movie this morning before we started recording. And it's just like I said, it moves at a breakneck pace. You don't really have time to absorb much of anything before you're kind of shuffled on to the next thing. So what I would recommend though, if you're in any way interested, go give it a watch. It is entertaining. There's a lot worse stuff you could do with like an hour and 20 minutes. You'll get a
True.
few laughs, and maybe maybe you can make a little bit more sense to the plot than me and Johnny just did.
Yeah. Well, we'll put a pin in it there, and I'll say good morning, good afternoon, hello, goodbye, any of the salutations, because I never know who's going to watch this or when. Russia, America, UK, India, according to YouTube, 2% audience. So someone's out there watching this. So I've made sure to enable English captions. I would happily put other captions up if I had them, but I don't. But I enable the auto ones, so at least people can chuck those on if they want them. But we'll catch you out next time. I'll say goodbye and
See you later, folks.